Well, welcome to What's So Funny, the show that probes the brains, the minds, even the psyches of the people who bring you the funny. Tonight, a man who knows the meaning of the word compromise. He also knows that comedy is better than sex. We're talking about author, poet, comedian, the always dapper John Wing. So we take you now to yesterday afternoon on the comfy chairs of a Starbucks on Granville for a scintillating conversation with a man once known as John Wing Jr. John Wing, one of my favorite comics in the country. You're not even in the country. That's how good you are. 20 years now you've been in the States, isn't it?
21 this month, yeah. Well, I always figured better to go and fail and come back than not go and think, gee, I wonder what I would have done. So I went.
And you didn't fail, and you didn't come back.
I failed to fail. I married an American who likes the mountains, and we had children, and she's got a job there now, and, you know, roots. And I don't think she'd like living in Toronto. It's a bit flat for her. Ontario in general is flat, so if we come back somewhere, we'll probably come back to this area. And I understand it's really cheap living in Vancouver now.
Yeah, you can get a house easy. But hey, by the way, if you're wondering about the tunes in the background, we are coming to you live on tape, or whatever this format is.
On Apple products.
From Starbucks, Granville Street. That's a nice area.
It is beautiful. There's nothing more better than a beautiful.
I even liked you when you were a junior. When did you drop that? John Wing Jr.
Well, I dropped it originally at my manager's behest when I moved to California. I had it in Canada for a while, but I'm of an age now where it seems to me to be a little gratuitous. That's all. I am still John Wing Jr., and my father is still alive. But when you're over 45, being called Junior just seems a little idiotic, doesn't it? To me, anyway.
I first heard you, I don't even know when this was. There was an album out, a Yuck Yucks album, and I got it. Do you know when that was? 80s?
86, 87, something like that.
Yeah. And you performed Comedy's Better and
Signature.
Fantastic piece. And the song I Hope You Die.
I Hope You Die. My two signatures from my early period. Yeah, and I couldn't, I can't really do either of those anymore either. I'm a little too...
Because?
Well, I Hope You Die is a dating guy's song. And I've been married almost 20 years. So there's that. And... I don't know, you just move on to different material. The comedy's better, I can still do it, and it's still a good bit. But I haven't done either one of those in a really long time. It's just too far away from it now.
Let's listen now to John Wing singing I Hope You Die.
I broke up with her. Broke up with her at a funeral. Well, I figured she was crying anyway. So, all that bad relationship stuff, now I got a good one. But before I met my wife, I wrote a song about breaking up. It's called the Breakup Song. I do tend to sing it from the male point of view, but I think if you're man, woman, child, or beast, and I've had them all, oh, I better get off soon. I think you can probably relate to this in some small way, so I'm going to do it now for you. Woke up this morning and you were gone. I found a note that said so long. You said this love would last our lives. I hope your face breaks out in hives. I hope you have a heart attack. I hope your breasts get really slack. You were my girl, but now you're not. I hope you die, I hope you rot, 'cause I don't want to be your friend. I only want your life to end. You're back in town, someone else's gal. I hope you drown in the love canal. The chorus of the song is, I hope you die a painful death. Hope you die a painful death. Gosh, I'd be honored if you'd all sing along in this last chorus with me. Because I know in your hearts and in your minds, you'll be dedicating it to that special someone. Maybe you didn't have a song to sing when they left, well now you do. I'm going to help you out with the words. We go with I hope you die a painful death to the count of 4. When you're ready, 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you die. I hope you choke on your next breath. Hope you choke on your next breath. You screwed me up. Done me wrong. I hope you die before too long. You were dedicating that to me, weren't you, you bitch? I hope you die before I end the song. I hope you die. I really hope you die. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die.
Yeah, is it tough letting go and just realizing that you're at a different place, or are you just fine with it and just go, I'm at
Well, depending on the bit, it can be tough. I have a bit now that's been around close to 20 years that I haven't done it this week, but it's still around if I still use it. You know what's odd? You'll have a joke in your act, and you'll always do it in the same spot for 2-3 years, and then one night, for no reason at all, and I mean literally, for no reason, you don't do it.
It just doesn't come up.
For some reason, you always do it in the same spot. One night, you don't do it, and you never do it again, ever. And 2 years later, somebody comes up and says, remember that joke you used to do about the thing with the guy and everything? Oh, yeah, that's right. And you haven't even thought about it all the time. Because the jokes that it was separating fused like a dental implant, and boom, you had it was your subconscious telling you this is either wrong for your act or it's in a bad place in the act. And you need to, it streamlines your show, and you do that subconsciously. And then sometimes you write a bit 2 or 3 or 4 years later, and an old joke you have fits in the new bit, so you can recycle it.
It's interesting, though. I mean, with comedy, you're not musicians where people expect the hits. But you've been around at it long enough that you get fans coming up saying, oh, do this, do that.
Absolutely. My married man's vocabulary piece, the 4 words you need to know if you're married. Oh, yeah, right, sorry. Huge fan base for that one. They always ask for that. Sigmoidoscopy, I get asked for that occasionally. Yeah, you do, but we make a living based on the fact that people have short memories, thank heavens.
I still quote your bit about marriage and compromise.
That's a rhythm joke. I like that joke. My wife taught me about compromise. My wife taught me all about it before we got married. I wanted to have a bachelor party. She didn't think I should have one, so we compromised, and I didn't have one.
And that is so economical, too. It's really well written. You're not hitting us over the head with it, and we get it. No. And it just says everything you need to know about.
Works well rhythmically.
Yeah.
I have a 6-word joke.
Okay.
Including a setup. I'm a good lover. Self-taught.
Yeah, it's something about your act. You do have these great short hits, and then you go into longer stories, and even you bring out the guitar.
I was talking to a comedian who does a lot of short jokes, and I said, you can work your way into longer stories. The stories just have to have a lot of short jokes in them. You have to have a lot of funny spots in the stories where you can use lines. But I drifted. I mean, I evolved into that.
So you started out doing the short hits?
I started out. It's difficult to say. Yeah, I gravitated in the first 3 or 4 years toward more short stuff. And then as I grew and developed, I started doing the longer stuff around between 12 and 15 years in is when I started really pushing longer stories. And it took 2 or 3 years to get good at it, get at that part of it, telling the long story and having laughs all the way through it. So.
And also confidence, too, I would imagine, in that knowing that you're going somewhere, and even if the audience misses one of the bits, that you know that it's going to end up in a good place. And I imagine like a lot of younger comics might just lose confidence and bail early or something if they're not getting...
Well, once you get into a story, you can't really bail early.
No.
You know, I'll tell you, there's a principle in comedy songwriting that you can apply here. Every song I've got has a weak line or a weak couplet. I don't think any of them have weak verses, but there's always a weak line. And every time you come to that line, when you're performing it, you think, every time you think, I should fix that. I should make that line better. That line sucks. And in stories, the thing about long stories too is it's a long story, but within the framework of it, I'm keeping it short. I'm telling it in short bursts, and each burst is funny to its degree. So yes, it's connected. It's interconnected in a long story idea, but you're not telling it as here's the idea and there'll be a laugh in 5 minutes. There's going to be laughs all the way through, and I want to build it up to a big laugh at the end. That's the idea. Well, you know that.
Well, our listeners are interested to learn anything.
Fascinating. Your listeners must be a really interesting group of people, and good looking too, I think.
They are. How long have you... So you moved to the States 21 years ago. How long were you doing it? You started in Toronto, I take it. How long had you been doing it before you moved?
This is my 29th year.
29 years.
June 30th will be my 29th anniversary from the first amateur night.
You got big plans for the 30th?
Oh, yeah, huge. Oddly enough, on my 20th anniversary, I happened to be in Toronto for some reason, and I did a set, which I thought was kind of fun. But no, I don't have any plans for my 30th anniversary as a comic. It's an anniversary that when it passes, only my father and I note it. He phones me.
So tell me, when you started, what got you up onto the stage? What spurred you on? I mean,
well,
you're a thoughtful, intelligent guy.
Oh, yeah, right. And you're probably a wonderful fisherman. I tried a lot of different types of performing in high school and college. Learned how to play the guitar, taught myself the guitar, played in bars, was in plays and the various things, tried to sing. A friend of mine said, if you intend to play the guitar and sing in front of people, you had better be extremely funny. And then when I got to Toronto in spring of 80, I checked out a comedy club. I mean, it was always there in my head, but you grow up in Sarnia in the 70s. I mean, what are the odds you're going to be a comic? I mean, come on. How can you realistically dream that? You can't. It's not practical. But then there was a comedy club. And then I saw a couple of shows, and signed up for amateur night, and went out on amateur night and just destroyed. And but that wasn't what got me hooked. It was the second amateur night.
Now, I hear a lot of comics do well on their first night, then die a horrible death on their second. Is that your experience?
Absolutely.
And that's what got you hooked?
Yep. The dying. Yeah.
Just because you were curious about how it happened?
How do you get back? I got that. How did I do it that night and not do it this night? Verbatim, word for word, the same set. Same set.
Have you thought about it now? Like, have you figured out why it was? I mean, it was verbatim, but was it timing? Was it more rote? I don't know.
Well, it was confidence. It was when both of them. The first one was complete luck. It was when I hit I was late in the set. Late in the show. It had been a bad amateur night. A lot of bad acts. The MC was really funny. Simon Rakoff, still a friend of mine, and he gave me a nice intro, and it got a few laughs. I came out, got a laugh off the top, which is huge, because then if you can get the first laugh early, they believe you're funny, and then you don't have to convince them any further. They just believe it. So that everything hit, and as soon as the first one hit, I had a lot of confidence. I knew what I said was going to be funny, and the second time, none of that happened. First thing didn't hit, nothing hit. I'm standing, and you just start to shrink, standing there twirling a guitar pick in my hand, looking down at it. What the hell am I doing here? So, when you don't know how to do it, your consistency of performance depends on lots of factors. Now it doesn't. Now there are no factors.
None?
Well, not really. Not realistically. I mean, yeah, okay, well, now and again there's a bad audience once every 3-4 years.
But you've experienced enough of different kind of audiences that you should theoretically know how to get them, even if they are bad. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not exactly it. My consistency of performance and my understanding of what I do and why it works is such that it doesn't matter who the audience is. I mean, it's nice to look out and see people my age. That's a confidence builder. But it's what I do. I go out and I make them laugh, and I know how. And if I'm not making them laugh, if something happens and they don't laugh at something, I know how to spin that around to make them laugh at it. I just have a huge set of otherwise completely useless skills. It's not balls. Partly it is. It's confidence, but I know all the formulas. I know all the tricks. So, like I said to a friend of mine, a juggler I work with on cruise ships a lot, one night we were having a cigar, and I said, I had a late show that night, and I said, I'm 29 years on the job. What could possibly happen out there that is going to faze me that I haven't seen before? I go to the show that night. It's in a theater on the ship. Front row, guy has ordered a champagne in a bucket. So he's got a bottle of champagne unopened in a bucket at his feet. I'm doing a joke. The cork pops spontaneously and hits me in the forehead. Now, okay, that. So if you say what could happen that I haven't seen, that night something will happen that you've never seen. It's like a baseball game.
Yeah, but that probably you made comedic gold out of that.
I got some laughs off it, sure. But
nothing funnier than a guy getting hit in the face.
Part of that is relaxing and not rushing. Time slows down for you when you're on stage, and I can unload in my brain 4 or 5 sentences in a second or 2 seconds. So if I relax, if I'm outwardly relaxed and breathing easy, you can't faze me. I mean, you can't. You're not going to... If the heckler gets a laugh, I can time his laugh and get a bigger laugh on top of it because I have extra time while they're laughing. It's only 2 seconds, but it's an hour. I just go through the Rolodex, and there it is, You just have a backlog of experience on the stage. And that's when they talk about stand-up comedy class and everything. I taught 2 6-hour seminars to these stand-ups, and then we went and did a show at this theater. And every single one of them, without exception, as soon as they stepped on stage and did one joke, reverted back to all the stuff I told them they shouldn't do. They reverted back to what they knew. So I couldn't teach them a thing. They had to do stand-up another 500 times before they would get... It's that logarithmic progression. After 200 shows, you know this much. After 400 shows, you know 6 times as much. After, you know what I mean? It's just, You just, your knowledge, it's exponential after a number of shows.
Yeah, it's being in the moment. And is that one thing that you think a lot of young comics do wrong? Is that they rush it, they want to get through their act instead of just enjoying the moment and being able to react to anything?
Well, but they don't have the sense of how time is going. They think it's going much more quickly than it's actually going. On amateur nights, I could go to an amateur night with you, and I could predict with startling accuracy if anyone was of the comedians who were going to be good or not before they said anything.
And what do you see in that?
How are they dressed? How are they walking to the microphone? How are they dressed is almost infallible.
You the other night at Yuck Yucks here on Burrard Street, you closed the set of the finals of the Yuck Yucks stand-up competition. First remark was that you're not in the competition because you dressed.
Yeah.
So you did notice the dress of the others, and are you saying that it doesn't work for everybody or nobody?
Well, it's something I tell amateurs. Dress as though you're performing in a show. Don't dress as though you're sitting on your couch, dickhead. It's a show. They're forming an impression of you before you say anything. So one of their impressions should be, he looks nice. He thought about what he was going to wear today. That will aid in their general impression of you if you're funny. That's one thing. Professionals in the last decade or so, it's gotten very hip to dress down. And lots of amateurs will say, well, this is what I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable dressed like a homeless guy. And, I'm very comfortable dressed like a homeless guy. And when I go out a lot, I dress like a homeless guy. Someone told me that, and a couple of weeks later I was outside a hotel in Saskatoon doing the New York Times crossword, sitting on the ground, a cold night. I couldn't smoke in my room. I was having a cigar, doing the New York Times crossword, dressed like a homeless guy. And security from the hotel came out and tried to kick me off the street. But I don't dress that way for a show. This is my work. I'm a professional. It's just a question of, if a guy comes in to do a seminar that you're attending, and he's dressed like a hobo, what's your first impression of the seminar? That's all.
Yeah, and theoretically it shouldn't matter. The material should matter, but people do make those first impressions.
Yeah. The guy who won the other night at Yuck Yucks, John Bueller, who was amazingly funny, I don't know if he'd be any funnier if he dressed better.
He does sometimes.
And maybe he does. Yeah, for corporates.
He went through a phase of wearing suits.
Well, last night I wore a sweater, and I didn't like it. I wasn't happy after the first show, so I changed I changed into a jacket for the second show, and didn't do very well. So you never know.
Hey, we're talking with John Wing. The show's What's So Funny on CFRO 102.7 FM, coming to you live from, not live, but Starbucks. It's Saturday afternoon, the day before this show. When did you start to wear the bow tie?
Well, I always wore bow ties. My dad taught me how to tie one when I was young, and you have to learn young. I tried to teach an adult how to do it some years ago, and I could not teach him. He could not get the concept. So you got to learn young. And my wife suggested it as a way of looking different. I've abandoned it for the most part the last 5 or 6 years, but for a time it was my. And there's a certain comedy is juxtaposing incongruous things, and wearing a bow tie and swearing, or wearing a bow tie and talking about some of the things I talk about, allowed for an incongruity that helped the show in the end. But I'm bringing bow tie back, yeah.
I want to talk. You mentioned being comforted slightly, looking out in the audience and seeing someone of our age. Now, I was noticing in your act the other night, and I know you have different acts for different scenarios that you're in, but a lot of it's still concerned with sex, but the contextualization is different. Now you're coming at it from a married man of 20 years. And so how is it if you do go out to a club and it's all 20-somethings in the audience?
How is it?
Are they relating? Do they just go, oh yeah, I guess that's what it's like. It's funny either way? Or do they put up a wall like, who's this old guy?
It's nerve-wracking. I referenced the old guy stuff early. And I'm not old, I'm just older than they are.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. There's an apathy about what I'm talking about because they haven't experienced it. And the difference being when I'm talking with people who have experienced it, I'm feeling a kinship, which I don't feel with the 20-somethings or the whatever. Yeah, the second shows are often full of people like that. That's why I don't work clubs as much anymore. You just have to try and do your best. This is my act. If you don't think it's funny, there's nothing I can do about it.
They'll get there. They get their time. It's amazing how quickly it goes, though, isn't it? Because in our minds, we're about the same age. I'm still 22 years old, right? You must feel that way, too.
Sometimes, not always. I have.
Not physically.
I have arthritis. Yeah. It's not
physically. In your mind.
And I don't. I've noticed. I wondered. Some guys talk about sexual desire into their 70s, and it doesn't change from when you're 19. But I've noticed a change of late. I don't take phantasms to their logical conclusion in my head as often as I used to, shall we say.
Enough said. So there you've been in the States 21 years. Do you feel do you feel like an outsider still, or you're not that you're American, but do you feel like you're just all your neighbors?
Well, the guys in my neighborhood that I know are the guys I play tennis with, and everybody knows I'm Canadian. Hey, my daughter, who's an American, also I'm getting her Canadian citizenship. She is known on her speech and debate team as the Canadian, and she won this tournament last year in original oratory, the category. She won that category, and when she was announced the winner, I was sitting in the front row of the auditorium at the award ceremony, and the team was all behind me, 40 kids, and they got up and sung "O Canada," sang "O Canada," which was a moment in your life that you just think, I will never repeat this. This is too unbelievable. I got a bunch of L.A. American kids singing "O Canada," at Burbank High School auditorium because my daughter has won something. So it was weird. I'm more of an outsider. Well, you're an outsider. If you're a comic, you're an outsider. No matter where you are, you're an outsider. You're observing. You're detached. You're back from it. You've stepped away to look at it. The place I feel most at home, no one actually believes me. But my spirit city is. I lived there 2 years.
Where's this?
It's Windsor, Ontario. 1920. I lived in Windsor, and when I was 19 and 20, not in the year 1920. I know some of you thought that. And when I go back there, as I get to go back there maybe once every couple of years, I was back there twice in the last year, and I'll be back there in June. So it's a banner year. But when I'm in Windsor, I am more at home than anywhere in the world.
Can you explain that?
I lived there for 2 years. It's my college town.
Oh, okay.
And my father's from there, although we had moved to Sarnia before I was born. It's where his father and he were both from. And there's just something about it. Lots of dead relatives and graveyards there.
You talk about your daughter and your wife. You talk about them on stage, too. And, you never know with a comedian whether it's a comedic device of playing the weary husband. But I'm just wondering, do they see your act and do they ever say, oh, don't say that? Or are they...
I wrote a bit about my daughter when she was, 12 or 13 maybe. it was about her getting tattooed. And she'll never get tattooed because my older daughter, who's now 16, she'll never get tattooed because she hates needles. But I wrote this bit. I was looking at a lot of tattoos, and I wrote this bit and inserted her into it. But I made her 15 years old. So I had to make sure I didn't say her real age at any point earlier in the show so that I could establish her as 15 and then. The kids, I was doing an afternoon show in Irvine for some group, and my wife had something to do, so I took the kids with me. So Rachel's 12 or 13, Isabel's 8 or 9. They're sitting in the back of the room. I do the show, and I do really well. And I finish up, and I go to get them, and I figure they're going to be, wow, you were so good, blah, blah, blah. And instead they both, why'd you say Rachel was 15? I said, because 13-year-olds getting a tattoo is kind of creepy. I'm trying to, assuage the creep factor. And Rachel, I'm writing this bit about her dating, and she made me promise I wouldn't put it on YouTube so that her friends could see it, because one of the boyfriends, I'd use his real name, his first name. The other one I couldn't tell you. I talk about her, a 20-year-old guy being interested in her. And for my purposes, it's true. It's true that a 20-year-old guy was interested in her. However, the actual facts of him are such that they would take away from the bit. So I make him a very regular 20-year-old guy, not a devout Muslim in a wheelchair. I don't make that to be the case, although that is the case. So what you do is you start from a truthful place and you make it up where you have to. Inevitably, in a comedian's bit, if it ends with him saying something really funny to the guy, that didn't happen. Everything up to that happened, and then he imagined what he would have wanted to say to the guy. Yeah. That's what it's about. Like I was last summer. I'm 49 now. I was 48 years old. I was at the hardware store. I was buying a toilet seat and a barbecue. And I was going to have to go home and build the barbecue, which I'm very bad at. So I get this guy helping me, this older guy, and I've got the toilet seat under my arm, and I'm at the cash register, and he's bringing the barbecue in a box on one of those little hand carts. And he gets up to me and he says to the cashier, "Did you ring him up yet?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Good." And he turned to me and he said, "You get the senior discount." Which is 55 and over. And I'm presented with a dilemma because I'm 48. But I'd still like to get the senior discount, and I'd also like to let this asshole know. Look, dickhead. But I never managed to make it funny enough for stage. But, and I didn't say anything to him. I just said, I'm not 55. I declined the discount.
That is a dilemma. And how presumptuous of the guy.
How do you get the discount and tell the guy what a jerk off he is?
We were talking with John Wing here at Starbucks. That's all the grinding that you hear, and the music, and the bathroom door opening and closing. Yeah. We're here. The show's What's So Funny, and the station CFRO 102.7 FM. I'm Guy McPherson. John has lived in the States for 21 years. But I see you up in Canada all the time. Do you get more work in Canada?
Yeah, lots of my career's here now.
Now, so when you first moved down there?
10 years or so.
Yeah.
It's been somewhere between about half and half the last 10 years. This year, it's more than half. I'm doing more than half the year here. So.
Well, that's a good thing now, I guess.
You don't want my tax problems, dude.
No, I don't. But you're also on the high seas.
Yes, I'm on the high seas.
Any drama on the high seas? Are you on one of these boats where everyone gets sick or jumps off?
I've been on boats where people got sick. And been on boats where people died. There was a knife fight once.
Gee.
What's it, a knife?
You're really selling it.
Oh, but that was the crew.
Oh.
Now I can't tell you what line I work for either. But Oh no, ships are generally pretty safe. I mean, I've never had in 13 years. I think I've had one night you could say was pretty rough.
You mean the weather?
Yeah. There was an act that was supposed to headline Five Brothers, the Knutsons from Utah, and a cappella singing act. They were all sick. They were all too sick to go on, and all the singers and dancers from the production show were too sick to go on, so I had to go on. I was sick, but I wasn't too sick that I couldn't go on. So.
And wasn't most of the audience sick, or they just?
Yeah, we did the show in the small lounge. So I did a show 9/11.
That night?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
We were, I'd been in New York 36 hours before, flown in, got on a ship the next day on the 10th to Bermuda. We were, whatever it was, 24, no, not even, 12 hours outbound to Bermuda. And I had a late show that night in the lounge. And all day I kept thinking, oh, they're going to cancel. They'll cancel it. But they didn't, and it was packed. Standing room only. They were desperate for a laugh.
I remember around that time people were going, oh, is this the death of comedy or irony or anything? And how did you take it at the time? If you can...
Death of comedy? Give me a break.
No, but we're uncertain.
Irony. Like there's any irony in the United States of America. It doesn't exist there. Or if it does, no, it's not that it doesn't exist. The populace, the general populace, can no longer recognize it for what it is. They don't see, for instance, Fox News didn't have any problem at all with Mr. Bush breaking the law, with his people breaking the law, with all the deficits he ran up. No problems. Now that there's a Democratic administration in, their problems are manifest. Pardon me, manifold. What an idiot. Their problems are they're just crazed about all the Obama people who didn't pay their taxes. My God, and the deficits this guy's running up, and our children are going to pay. That's ironic. It's not rain on your wedding day or a free ride when somebody else is paid. Irony is when one group criticizes one guy for something and doesn't criticize. That's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, and it's only been like 6 weeks or something that he's been in, too.
Yeah.
You were on the Tonight Show back when it meant something.
Just under that line.
With Johnny Carson.
Yeah, I would, but truly the relevance of the ability for it to break you out into a higher tax bracket ended with Johnny. Johnny had such power that if he wanted a comedian on, that comedian would get on, and he would get on in a decent spot. Once he stopped, the other guys didn't have the power, and the comedian always goes on at the end, if then. Leno never has comedians on. It's rare. And Letterman does. There was a great one on last night.
No, I missed it.
I can't remember his name, but he was really good. Quick jokes he did slowly. He was very good. He said, what was one of the jokes? My daughter came back from visiting her grandmother, and she said to me, Daddy, why? Why does Grandma have to die? And I said, well, honey, she committed a capital crime. Which I thought was a very good joke. They call their grandfather Poppy, because he's a heroin dealer. Great joke. Anyway, I forget the guy's name. He's very good, though.
So back, what year were you on? Oh, you were on 6 times. Was it all with Johnny or something with?
No, the first 2 were when Johnny was there. First was with Jay as guest host. Jay got me on. He saw me, liked a joke. I'd been dickering with the guy for 2 years.
The booker?
Yeah, Jim McCauley. And then Jay saw me and said, we'll get you on. So he got me on. And then I did it with Johnny. Did it with Jay in 90, Johnny in 91, Jay in 92, 3, 4, 5.
So that one time with Johnny was at, well, it's nice to have.
Oh, beautiful. Well, of course, I never met him.
Not at all?
Or even made eye contact with him.
But he said your name.
He did, and he went and he gave me the okay sign.
Yeah, that was always nice. But, you know, he must have felt pressure. You imagine a comic gets on and he doesn't get that okay sign?
Are you kidding me? Pressure. The first one. You don't know this, do you? Okay.
No.
You've been studying for 10 years. Tonight's your exam. It's 5 minutes long, in front of 20 million people, and your whole career is on the line.
Yeah.
Pressure. Yeah, maybe a little. Afterward, I didn't remember. We were driving home. Was I married then? Yeah, I was. We just got married. I was married about a year. We were driving home, and I said, I feel as though it went well, but I can't remember. Because once I started talking, I zombified myself. I did it on automatic. You do it on pilot. You do it. You've trained yourself to do it. You do it. You time the laughs, but you can't actually remember it afterward. That was what.
Can't enjoy it.
No, the enjoyment is at 8 or 9:15 after it's played in the East and the phone calls start to come, and then at 12 midnight when you see it, 12:10 midnight when you actually watch it for yourself. That's the enjoyment. Although the last one I bombed, and I remember driving home with my wife and thinking it couldn't have been as bad as it felt, right? It was better than that. And I watched it and it was worse than it had felt.
Yeah, in what way? Just the audience wasn't giving it?
No. It wasn't their fault. I made a serious error right off the top and cost me the whole set. In a 5-minute set, you can't blow any. If you blow your opening, you're dead. They'll just watch you die. You know? They're just gonna sit there like they're looking at a lynching or something. And that's all they did. I got some applause breaks, but no laughs.
And so, did the producers say anything to you after? Like, you won't be coming back anymore?
No, but that's what happened. I never came back. I was just one of those.
Right? You're only as good as your last show, right? You had 5 great ones.
Truth, you're only as good as your next show. But yeah, the old saw is you're only as good as your last show. Yeah, I had 5 great ones, and then I never did it again. The way it goes.
But how do you send out tapes? Is that it? Or you get your managers to do it and so they try?
I tried a few more times, but it just never happened. I think I was on hold for it once or twice after that. They weren't sure a guest was going to get there in time, so I went down and was on hold in case they didn't, but never got on again.
But so going back to the first and second time, especially with Johnny, and you say the phones ring, these days I guess there's just so much competition. There's so many shows on, there's so many channels to choose from. Not all the eyes are focused on that one show. So what did it do to your career?
Well, it made you money. First of all, you'd book work the week after you did it, after it aired, you'd book a lot of work. Usually between 10 and 20 grand's worth of work, and that was good. And it just put you in a higher bracket. I remember after the first one, I walked into the Improv one night early, not too many people there, and a guy called me over, a guy I'd never met. Jeff Foxworthy was sitting with his wife, and he said, "Hey, John," called me over. Well, a welcome to the club type thing,
right.
And that was cool. That was real cool. Jeff's a nice guy, but. You know, it turned out in the end it didn't really mean that much. It's good for the resume. It helps you get jobs. It still helps me get jobs. But in terms of breaking you out to another style of career, type of career, no, not anymore. Not for me. I'm not a very good actor.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever try? Did you ever go to auditions?
Are you kidding me? 20 years. 20 years of that crap.
What's the highlight of your acting career?
I'm trying to think if there is one. I auditioned for over 1,000 commercials and never got a single one up.
Put that on your resume.
It was for a while. It was on my about the author for a while in my books. Did a movie a few years back, was terrible in it, and it was a terrible movie. It never even made video.
So it didn't come out at all.
I was in the movie Recruits, a Canadian knockoff of Police Academy in the 80s. Oddly enough, a childhood friend from Sarnia was one of the stars. He got out of the business. Trying to think. The most wonderful professional experience acting was playing myself in my radio show, Man, Woman, and Child. That was great. But I quit auditioning as an actor, I guess it's almost 10 years ago. Remember the movie Monkey Bone?
Yes, with Brendan
Fraser, Chris Kattan. The role was Stephen King, author. I got a call back. I looked just like him.
Now that you mention it,
Went
yes.
to a dialogue coach to get the New England accent down. Got a call back, and when I didn't get that part, I said to my wife, if I can't get the part of a guy I'm a double for, what is the point of this? What is really the point of it? And so I stopped auditioning at that point.
But with a sense of regret, or just like, who needs her?
I'm not comfortable acting. On radio, playing myself, I can do it. Some people said I downgrade my acting ability. It's not as bad as I say, but I'm not comfortable with it. And I'm comfortable doing stand-up. I'm good at that. And I never started doing stand-up so I could be an actor. It'd be nice. I see Eddie Izzard, Patton Oswalt, all these guys, Harlan Williams, although Harlan can't really play but one kind of part, unfortunately. But there's a lot of comics. Larry Miller is a great comic actor, but it didn't happen for me, and it still might. I'm not dead, but I'm not expecting it, and it's not a great disappointment. I didn't do it to be an actor. I do it to do what I do.
A lot of comics now, comics using air quotes, get into it just so they can get stage time, so they can be seen to become actors.
Well, I saw Jim McAleese, an old Toronto comic, in a commercial today. Seen that commercial where the old woman is walking around talking to herself, and it turns out she has a Bluetooth?
No.
Okay, well, he's in that. I'm always seeing guy. My God, you saw Cinderella Man, right?
No.
You never saw that?
No, I didn't.
What are you, gay or something? What is your problem? Cinderella Man. They filmed it in Toronto. So Linda Cash, daughter of Maureen Forrester, the singer, and a fine actress, Linda, played Paul Giamatti's wife. Boyd Banks, great comic, originally from here, I believe.
Yeah.
Boyd played one of the reporters. In the final fight, Max Baer, Jim Braddock, each corner had a comedian in it. Lou Eisen was in Jim Braddock's corner, and Wayne Fleming was in Max Baer's corner, which was so you're always seeing the guys in the various, because Toronto, you can even catch Brent Butt on an old X-Files as a coroner. He walks into the room, there's a dead body, he goes, I wonder what killed this guy, and he takes the sheet off and there's a wooden stake through the guy's heart. Back when Brent was living here and was getting jobs when X-Files was here.
That's right, so, yeah. A lot of guys did that. Peter Kalamis, you see in movies.
Peter, sure. I've worked with Peter.
You mentioned your books. How many books do you have now?
Well, in the house, or are you talking about the ones
the ones that you have penned?
I own a lot of books. I have 5 books of poetry. I have a 6th one I'm almost finished, and I have a memoir at the chapters on Robson there were 3 of them available, the memoir, in the biography section as of yesterday. But now there are only 2 because my friend Phil Hanley bought one.
I might go buy another one. Is that the Ventriloquism for Dummies? Or?
We changed the title.
Oh, so what is it?
The For Dummies people didn't like it.
Uh-huh.
The new title is When the Red Light Comes On, Get Off.
And that's in the biography section. Well, folks,
Yes,
there might be one left after you hear this interview, so rush down there. I'm sure you can order it. But yeah, so poet. Do you define yourself as a poet? You have 5
Sure.
books of poetry, yeah?
Yeah.
Somebody says, hey, what do you do? Are you a stand-up comic or a poet or artist?
Entertainer. If someone asks me what I do, I generally don't say I'm a poet, unless I'm at a poetry reading or a writer's festival or something like that, which I get to do about once every 3 years. So I don't say I'm a poet, but I am.
Yeah.
I just don't say it.
And you have been since high school.
Yep, that's right.
Now, obviously, it takes time, like it does with stand-up, to get really good.
A lot
at
more
something.
time than stand-up takes.
It takes longer.
Stand-up takes about 5 years.
Yeah.
Poetry, well, I started writing at 14, give or take, and I published my first book at 38. So, slightly more time.
Yeah, but in fairness, it's harder to get a book of poetry published.
I guess. It's harder to get a single poem published, really. I guess that's so.
Do you look at your old poetry and go, ugh? Or do you go, oh, that's pretty good?
Sure. Sometimes. I mean, what survives in my filing cabinets from some of my early stuff survives. I don't go and read it a lot, but virtually everything I wrote before I was 25 was crap. Virtually everything. There might be 1 or 2, maybe. I said on stage recently in a show, everything you do before you're 25 is really embarrassing, and everything you do between 25 and 35 is mildly embarrassing. And once you're 45, if you're still doing embarrassing things, you're an idiot.
Now, I have an English degree, and I had to take some poetry classes. I got to say that I don't get a lot of it. It's difficult. It's going for me. I love your poetry, and there are some poets that I read where I go, yes, I get it, but they're few and far between. But,
Like who?
Philip Larkin, I really like.
They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do.
Oh, yeah, who are your favorites? I'll pretend.
I like Philip. I like Joe Rosenblatt, Vancouver guy, or originally Toronto. I think he lives out here now. He's got to be. He's over 75 now, I think. Pretty close, or 75. Never met him. I'd like Don Coles, who's 80. He'll be 82 next month. He and my father went to high school together, and he's a friend of mine. He's a great poet, almost the greatest unknown poet in Canada. Who else do I like? I like Gary Snyder a lot, one of the Beats. Carolyn Kaiser, Theodore Rethke. Rethke taught Carolyn Kaiser at University of Washington in the 50s, and I like both of them. There's a great poet in Windsor, Susan Holbrook. You haven't heard of her, but if you ever see a book by her, she's amazing.
Really?
Funny as hell. Funniest poet I've ever known.
Yes, now this is interesting because not all your poems are funny. Some are humorous. Some are deep and sensitive.
Yeah, deep and sensitive. That used to get me laid.
Oh, hey, I used to play in a softball league with George Bowering.
Hey,
No? Poet Laureate of Canada.
I know George Bowering.
How about you as Poet Laureate of Canada? There you go. Would
I
you
think
move
you'd
back?
have to live here.
Move back.
Well, if they offer me that, I might.
Okay. So, do you write
Send the word.
Do you write poetry because you have to? Is this like a compulsion?
Maybe not in the beginning, but eventually, sure. I write out of compulsion. My writing takes various forms.
Yeah.
At certain points in any year, I tend to write one form at a time. Although right now I'm doing comedy and poetry, but rarely on the same day. Usually I go through periods where I write a lot of one or the other.
Because that's just where your head is at the moment, or because you're consciously saying, no, I'm going to stick to poetry in this chunk of time?
Probably more about where my head is at. If I want to write more poetry, I read more poetry. I have about, 500 or 600 volumes of poetry, various people. I collect a lot of poetry, among other. I collect a lot of books, but that's one of the things I collect. So I've always got stuff to read if I want.
So how do you know when some material that you're brooding over, thinking about, is best for poetry or for stand-up?
Well, sometimes they overlap.
Yeah.
I've written stuff initially as a poem that they later reworked into a joke. I don't know if I've ever written stuff that as a joke that was later reworked into a poem, but I probably have. So.
But you have to be very precise with your words and your language, and also, that's what I was going to say, you're very precise as a stand-up, and I find that the best stand-ups are. Is that a complaint you have with some comics, or you appreciate a broad range of comedic styles too?
Well, I prefer wordsmiths generally. Derek Edwards rocks the boat. Brent Budd is a guy who's not. Well, he's better than you'd think.
I would say that he's not thought of it, but he's very particular and precise.
Very precise, absolutely. But he's also the guy you could sit with in a bar and have him read a phone book to you and laugh your head off. He's just one of those types of guys.
Yeah. We are running out of time.
Thank God.
It was this painful for us.
Endless.
The onslaught of questions. I could go on, but I won't. We'll let you go.
Lovely. I was just kidding about that thank God thing.
Well, thanks so much. It's great to have you on the show, and you're going to be at a cruise ship near you somewhere around the. What do you got coming up this year?
I'm on the Voyager of the Seas, March 17th, and I think I fly to Cozumel, get on there. No, Cayman. Get on in Cayman on the 17th or 18th of March, and I'm on till the 24th. Then I'm in Toronto for 10 days in early April. I'm back here in Vancouver at Laugh Lines in New Westminster, April 2, 3, 4. I'm going to Toronto on the 5th. I'll be in Toronto, Halifax, St. John's, and Winnipeg. Go home on the 20th. Go back to Halifax on the 24th. And I'm in the Maritimes until May 15th. And then I'm taking a break. I'm going to be in Perth, Ontario at a theater on May 29th, and then I'm in Windsor the weekend after that, and I only took that gig so I could go to see a Detroit Tiger game.
Your team.
Tigers-Dodgers. That's Sunday on ESPN. I'll be at that game.
All right, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I've been to Paris, it's smelly and cold. I've been to Athens, where the buildings are old. I've walked across Tasmania in the Antarctic dawn, but it just don't compare with old Saskatchewan. 'Cause I've skied in the Rockies, I've walked the white sands. I've known people who could not find their ass with both hands. I've sailed to Tahiti, seen the northern lights. And babe, would you meet me in Moose Jaw tonight? 'Cause I've sailed the deep ocean, I've flown the big sky. Traveled the Silk Road from Rome to Shanghai. Been to Sydney and Singapore and Old Valley High. But I've been to Moose Jaw, now I can die. We can stroll around the city, say hi to the cop. See the light that says go and the sign that says stop. We can walk through the village square without any fear. We can go see a movie that came out last year. I've seen the Big Apple, the Oracle at Delphi. Wailed at the Wailing Wall, walked to Sinai. Bought hash in Amsterdam, golfed in Dubai. But I've been to Moose Jaw, kiss my ass goodbye. Calgary's not finished and Montreal's broke. Vancouver's a hellhole, Toronto's a joke. Winnipeg's freezing the whole damn year round. And Regina actually smells like it sounds. Please come to Moose Jaw if you don't believe me, where you can see for miles that there's nothing to see. Our days will be perfect, our nights will be full, and each weekend we'll go to the big tractor pull. I've been robbed blind in Rio, jailed in Paraguay, scalp tickets in Bangkok for the king and I. But I'd give up the Sultanate of old Brunei, 'cause I've been to Moose Jaw, now I can die. Wipe my ass with the Dead Sea Scrolls, tell you no lie. I've been to Moose Jaw, now I can die. I did this song in Moose Jaw, and it died. 'Cause they have no sense of humor, but...
This is John Wing, and you're listening to What's So Funny on CFRO, 102.7 FM in Vancouver, and all over the globe on the internet. What is so funny?
Well, I hope you enjoyed the hour-long conversation with John Wing. He's one funny guy. One of my favorites, as I said, on our blog, the show's blog. If you haven't seen it, grab a pen quickly, because I'm going to say it, and it's complicated. WSF1027fm.blogspot.com. You find all the information about upcoming guests and anything that's happening in the world of comedy. Not anything, not everything, but anything. All right, that's been the show. Tune in again next Sunday night, 11 until midnight, right here on this very station, CFRO 102.7 FM. Thanks for listening, and good night.